PyNet Labs. And again, just once again, we are back with the day second of your 100 question and answer series, which are basically from different topics, which will help you to gain your expertise in routing and switching. And if you are looking forward to go for interviews, this series is basically for you. So let's get started with today's series, and it's going to be quite interesting as we have already discussed the same thing in the day one that it's about different topics, different you can say, sections of enterprise, like beat your routing, beat the switching. And in today's session, we are going to talk about the top 10 interview questions, which are from OSPF. So as a network engineer, guys, you all know that what exactly OSPF is and how much widely OSPF is used in enterprise networks. So basically, just before getting started with the Q&A series, let's just understand something, just few basic points which we can talk about OSPF, that which stands for an open shortest path first, and it's a link state routing protocol, which means that it is just like, better than, you can say, distance vector, and there is as such no limitations for hop count. So you can see the third point that says OSPF sends hello packets just to establish and maintain the neighborship, which basically means that it's not like static routing. The neighborship is built up on an automatic basis when the hello packets are exchanged. And just to figure out the best path, it is going to use a metric that we consider it as the bandwidth, which is the fourth point written here. OSPF uses bandwidth metric to calculate the cost of the link. And not only this one, just shortest path first, and a lot of algorithms are there which are associated with OSPF, like SPT is there. So these all algorithms helps OSPF to, just figure out the best path. And the last point, which is quite common, the AD value for OSPF is 110. So that's what just a quick OSPF overview. Now let's get started with the Q&A series, which we are going to talk about in today's session. So over here, we'll continue from the question number 12, which says, which OSPF router type is responsible for generating a default route in OSPF? So this question is asking you to tell the name of the router. Like in OSPF, we do have some types of routers, as you can see. So over here, it says area border router, which is ABR. ASBR is one of the option, designated router and backup designated router. So it's asking us to tell the name of the route type or the router type, which is responsible for generating a default route in OSPF. So which router is responsible to do that? So for sure, that is the responsibility of your ASBR router, because over the ASBR router, we are just going to configure the default routes, which is going to be by the command of default information originator always. And we can also exclude the always keyword. So that's the part here. ASBR is the correct answer for this question. Back on the second question, which says, which OSPF area type can contain both internal OSPF routes and external OSPF routes imported from other routing domains? So over here, the correct answer for this is going to be your not so stubby area, because that area is responsible for having the internal OSPF routes and external OSPF routes, which are, coming from a different routing domain. So that's what basically NSSA is responsible for. That is not so stubby area. Now we have the 14th question. Which OSPF LSA type is used to describe the router and the link information? Yes, guys. So what do you think on this? So over here, we have the correct answer, which is the type 1 LSA, that is router LSA, because that router LSA is going to let you know the information of the link which is advertised in the network, or whatever the first command you execute to advertise whatever the network which is there. So that responsibility is for the type 1 LSA. And we all know in case of OSPF, there are total 12 types of LSAs, but as per CISCO, we only have 7 and 8 LSAs. So the correct answer for this one is going to be the type 1 LSA. Now we have this 15th question, which says, in OSPF, what's the purpose of OSPF link state database? So guys, if you have heard about the terminologies of OSPF, you must be aware about the types of tables which are there in OSPF. We have neighbor table, we have database table, we have routing table. So it's just asking you to name the purpose of OSPF LSDB. So LSDB is something where all the link state advertisements are stored, because you know that OSPF is something which is going to function on the link state advertisement. Just in the previous question, we have seen the same thing, that these are the types of LSAs, and every LSA is going to have its own unique responsibility, right? So in the same way, the question is saying, what exactly the purpose of this OSPF LSDB? So guys, LSDB is nothing. Let me first tell you what is LSDB. It's link state database, which is just a type of table the OSPF is going to create to maintain the information of the entire network, as well as all the LSAs which are advertised in OSPF domain are stored in the link state database. So over here we got some points or options to answer one. First, it says to store the routing tables. No, for routing tables, we already have the routes which are advertised and they're by default stored in the routing table. So LSDB is not the routing table. Second point says to maintain OSPF neighbors. So that is the responsibility of neighbor table. Third point says to store the information about network topology. So yes, that's the correct answer. Option number C we have with the point question 15. So LSDB is nothing, guys, but that's just the database table of OSPF where all the link state advertisements are stored. So technically, it's going to store the information about the entire network, whatever the networks which are advertised. Either they are in the same area or with a different area, but yeah, area 0 must be connected with that. So that's the correct answer. That's the option number C, to store the information about network topology. That's what we call it as OSPF link state database. Now, in OSPF, what's the formula to calculate the OSPF cost metric for a link? So over here, the answer is going to be the cost, which is 10,000 divided by the bandwidth. So that's what just the formula which OSPF is going to use to just figure out the cost metric for a link. And then we have the question number 17 that says, what's the purpose of OSPF virtual link? So guys, you all know that in case of OSPF, there is a rule and there is a recommendation that doesn't matter how many areas we do have in OSPF, all the areas needs to be directly connected with the area 0 in order to have a good synchronized routing information, and database should be synchronized. So over there, there are some kind of scenarios where we might not be able to connect to the area 0 directly. So for that, this virtual link is being created over here. So technically, if you will see the points or the options given here, the first is to connect two separate OSPF areas directly. Okay, second says to establish connection between OSPF area and external routing domain. Fine. Third point says the just to provide a logical path through the network for fault tolerance, or to connect OSPF router to an ISIS network. So guys, what do you think? Which is going to be the correct answer for this, that virtual link? Because it is responsible for joining two different areas directly if they are not directly connected. Like I told you, area 0 connectivity is mandatory. So for this, we are going to have the correct answer is the option number A, that says to connect two separate OSPF areas directly if they are not connected. So over there, we are going to use this virtual link, and the concept of router ID also comes up when we talk about the OSPF virtual link. So that's the answer, the option number A. Now, guys, the fourth 18th question we have, which says which OSPF authentication method provides the highest level of security by encrypting the OSPF packet. So it's about security. Now we got some options here. A option says MD5 authentication, B says plain text authentication, C says HMAC SHA-256 authentication, and last is not relevant, which says there is no OSPF authentication method that encrypts packet. So that's correct. That's really wrong. We don't say that that's incorrect answer, because OSPF do have an authentication mechanism where it can support MD5 and plain text as well. But it is saying that what is the highest level of security by encrypting OSPF packets. So for that, the correct answer is going to be your MD5 authentication. Now back again on the 19th question, the second last question of the Q&A series. So it says in OSPF, what's the purpose of designated router and backup designated router election on a multicast network access? So over here, there are some points which says to ensure that a designated router, the last point I'm reading up, which says to ensure that a designated router And a backup designated router should exist for network stability. Okay, that's I don't think correct. C point says to reduce the number of LSAs generated by the routers in network. No, for that we have different concepts in OSPF which says different types of areas are deployed. So we don't really talk about the C point. B says to elect a router that act as an advertising router for external routes. No. And A says to select the router with the lowest OSPF cost as the DR. So guys over here, the responsibility of DR and BDR on multi-access network is just to make sure and ensure that the designated router and backup designated router exist for network stability because they are going to take care about a lot of things like resource utilization and forwarding of the database inside the network. So for this one, we got the correct answer is the option number D. And now, guys, we have the very last question. So what's the purpose of OSPF type 7 LSA in not so stubby area? Which says it contains, it advertises AS external routes within NSSA, and it is used for inter-area route summarization, and it contains the information about ABR. And the last point says it advertises the type 5 LSAs within NSSA. So take your time, guys. Write the answer for this one in the comment box. Meanwhile, I'm waiting for you all. Take 1 minute and write the answer. Yes, guys. So the correct answer for this question we have is the option number D that says it advertises the type 5 LSA within the NSSA. So that's the correct answer. So basically, we can say the purpose of type 7 LSA in not so stubby area is just to bring the external routing information into the NSSA, or you can say while maintaining some level of isolations and control within that particular area. Because once these type 7 LSAs reaches the ABR, they are translated into type 5 LSA to be propagated throughout the OSPF domain. So this allows the routing between not so stubby area, which is NSSA, and other OSPF areas, making it as a useful feature in network design. So that's the thing, guys. We basically have with this quick Q&A series, which we have started, and this was all about OSPF today. So I hope it's all clear to every one of you. You can reach us out on comment box in case if you have any kind of questions and queries. So that is it for this Q&A series, guys. Thank you for joining, and we'll see back again next Sunday, 8 p.m. as per Indian Standard Time, and we'll be live and new topic will be coming up. So thank you for joining, guys, everyone.